So in your DWT, you'll see that there is a reference to the 3 style sheets that make up this theme. Now, the WP CSS are basic styles that WordPress uses on almost every theme. Styles with a Z is a style sheet that will handle your universal things like button colors. It doesn't matter how large the screen is, your button colors are generally going to stay the same. Fonts and things like that. And the media is a CSS that will determine the sizes according to the size of the device. And so we'll get into that. But just so that you're familiar with what's going on, in order to make this wonderfully responsive, you'll see that Fluid 1, which stands for 1 column in a 960 layout. So that would be 80 pixels at 960. One column is going to be 8.33% of the screen. 2 columns are going to be 16.66. 3 columns will be a quarter of the screen. So when we get further into creating the divs and it's asking you for fluid, this is what it's doing. If you're going to have a row that goes all across 12 columns, that would be a width of 100%. By making it this way, the columns will shrink and they'll grow according to the device. That's why it's done with percentage. And so you'll see a class already created for you called nested. You have a container 12. Okay, you'll see these later on. You'll see things like different percentages, like 20 is 20% width. So if you want a picture that's 20% of the section, for example, you'll put a class of 20, and as the screen grows and shrinks, it'll stay at 20%. Okay, so there's a lot of things already here written for you that you will see in a moment, and I just thought I'd show this to you. Okay, so let's go to the source code of Mooseloose DWT. Look for the edit below and the edit above. Put your cursor there, and let's go to insert div. Now, the first thing we're going to do is create the nav. The header is already created for you because it needed to be created in a way where this button would be functional. So the header is already created for you, and in order to modify it and customize it for your ends, you can create a graphic that's 960 by 160 and replace it. But the important thing is that the header is already created for you. So we're going to begin creating a site that kind of looks like this. It's going to have a header. It's going to have a 40 pixel nav bar. It's going to have 3 columns on the left, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 columns in the middle, and 3 columns on the right, and an 80 pixel high footer. We're not going to have the gray columns. I just put them there so that you can see what's going on. The way we design it, it won't need any designation there. Okay, so that's what we're going for. A 40 pixel high nav at 960. We have the 3 columns and a footer. So let's begin. Right now, all we have for the nav, let's insert a div, and because we want it to go all the way across all 12 columns, under class we are going to pick Fluid 12. Fluid 12 will create a div that goes across 12 columns, and let's call this navigation. Okay, we want a new CSS rule, which we will put in our styles CSS that ends in a Z. So it's called navigation, styles. We want a new CSS rule. We hit OK, and everything is taken care of already. All we need to do is go to box, put 40 pixels, and hit Okay, well, just for design purposes, let's put a background. Let's do something really crazy like put red. That way we'll see how it looks. Okay, background red. Box, we don't need a width because fluid 12 says 100%. We don't need a float. We just need a height and a background. Now, for some strange reason, it has been putting the new div at the bottom. I'll figure this out someday. But in the meantime, just copy and paste it where it belongs. Okay, so now we have a nav div. Notice it's the class is fluid 12, which we know means it goes across 12 columns. Okay, I'm going to save this. It's going to ask me to update the index, which I will. Okay, which it did. Now I'm going to save all, and I'm going to go to my FTP, find my moose loose. Here's the index that I want to update. I'm going to move the index up here. Now you have to do it on the server. You can't view on your computer because it's a PHP file and it needs to be on a server. So there we have it. Class content for fluid 12. Navigation goes here. Let me see why in the world it didn't do. Oh, because I have to move up the styles as well, because that's what's styling the page. And so now when I go here, I should have the red nav. There it is. So now we have a navigation that goes 12 columns and is 40 pixels high. Okay. Let's go back to Dreamweaver. Let's go to the source code. Well, let's go to styles and get rid of that. It's going to show up at the bottom. Let's get rid of that red background now that we see that it's going good. Okay, let's save that. Okay, let's go back to the source code on the Mooseloose DWV. Now, if we look at our Photoshop, we can see that we have a column with a left bar with 3 columns. So let's go ahead, put the cursor where we want the next div, insert a div. Now, because it's going to go over 3 columns, 1, 2, 3, we are going to, for the class, pick fluid 3. Stands for 3 columns. And let's call this left bar. Yeah, what the heck. Okay. Is this going to be a new CSS row? Yes. We're going to make sure it's in styles. And then we don't need to set the box width because fluid 3 determines what the width is going to be. We can put, I don't know, let's put a red background just so we can see that it's falling in place as we hoped it would. And then under box we need to float it left because we're going to have those 3 columns side by side, 1, 2, 3. So this column has to be floated to the left. Let's hit OK. Left bar. You might get this because, well, there's a reason. Don't worry about it. Hit OK. So it puts into fluid 3 called left bar. Okay. And it updated not only the DWT but the styles CSS. There it is. Let's save this. It's going to ask to update index. Yes, we want index to be updated because that's the one that we're going to move. And then we save all because that'll save the styles CSS. Okay, so I'm going to move my styles into the CSS. And then I'm going to move my index, which has just been updated. And if I go look at this, I should have a red column on the left, and I do. And here we go. Okay, so We took the color out of the nav. Now we have a red background. Let's go back and take that out because we don't need the red background there. We just did that so we can make sure that things are lining up. Okay. Save that. Let's go back to Moose Loose DWT. Let's put in our center column. We'll call it section. So it needs to be, as you can see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 columns. So let's go back here. Insert the div. Yes, come on. Okay. And because it's 6 columns, we're going to go down to fluid 6. And we'll call this section. And it's a new CSS rule. Okay, make sure it's in styles. Hit OK. This time under box, we want it to float left. Don't need a width because that's what fluid 6 is going to do. And let's put a color in just to make sure things are laying out as hoped. Okay, I'm going to hit this and that, hit OK. Save that DWT. It's going to update index. Then it updated styles, so let's save all. And let's move those files to the server into our themes directory. And move up to styles. And then when we go to see our site and refresh, we see the content where the section goes here. And because it's fluid, you'll see that it grows and it shrinks according to the media screen or the device that we're looking at. And that is our goal. Okay, let's go back to the DWT and let's take that color out of the section. That was just for us to see what was going on. I'm going to save it. Okay, I'm going to go to source code and I'm going to put the final 3 column div at the end here. Let's see, make sure we can see what's going on. So these 3 columns will be next. Okay, so we'll go over here and we will insert a div. Because it's 3 columns, we're going to pick float 3 and we'll call it right bar. It's going to be new CSS. Make sure it's in styles, and we're going to put a background of some kind of red or something going on here. Our box will be floating left. Don't have to worry about width because that's what the fluid 3 is taking care of. And hit OK. Okay, it puts it in. Notice the fluid 12 is the 12 column nav. The fluid 3 is a left nav or left bar with 3 columns. Then the section that has 6 columns. And all of this adds up to 12. So it's working good. Let's save this. Let's update our index. Okay. And let's save all. Let's move styles CSS into the CSS. Let's move index up. And we should now see okay, it looks like it didn't update for some reason. Now if it doesn't update, all you have to do is put a space somewhere. It's just going to make you save that DWT. I don't know why it didn't do it. We'll update that. We'll close. And save all. the index. Let's make sure that the styles is updated. Okay, so now we'll go here. And now we can see that we have a 3-column right bar that is responsive. Now you'll notice that at the telephone, on the phone size, these divs start stacking on top of each other, but other than that, they are side by side, and they grow and they shrink because of the fluid system. Okay, let's finally put our footer. Let's go over here, back to the source code, and let's put our footer div in. Let's call it how many columns across? 12. Therefore we pick fluid 12, and we're just going to call this foot. Okay, I'm going to add a new CSS rule. Here's styles. Okay, and remember our box is going to be 80 pixels high. We are going to clear both because this is the end of the 3-column floaters to the left. So let's clear both. And for the background, let's browse and pick the pre-selected background. It's in images or pre-created for you for the footer. Okay. Hit OK. Let's save. Let's update our index. Let's close. Let's save all. Let's move up our styles, CSS. Let's move up our index, which has been updated. Notice I'm not moving the DWT. Don't need the DWT up there. Okay, so let's go see if our site has a footer. Yes, it does. Okay, let's take off this red, because that's going to be in the style CSS. Remember, those are the universal things that will not change because of device width. Okay, so now we have our navigation, we have our left bar, our section, our right bar, and our footer. I'm going to save my source code and make sure that it updates the index. You save that. It's going to update the index. Update. I'm going to close. I'm going to save all. I'm going to move up index. And I am going to move up styles. And now my site should be ready to go. Okay, so there it is. The header, the footer, your navigation that we're going to put there, your left column. Okay, so we are ready to move on and start doing other things, such as putting in the WordPress code. But you can see that it is already communicating with the database. The navigation bar is already communicating with the database. Okay, let's continue in a minute.